Arc 6, Chapter 71, Count 1. With his final words washed away by the wind, Natsuki Subaru's consciousness came to an end. Speaking of irony, ironically enough, his death this time had been a death by his own volition. Perhaps that is why his mind and heart had remained calm at the moment of death, of course. That had not been the case. He had possessed uneasiness and nervousness for jumping into the circumstance of death on his own accord. However, unlike till now, he had faced the death he had anticipated with much more sincerity than his other deaths up to this time. Of course, he did not believe that him choosing to die had truly saved Shala. She did not want to kill him, so she wanted him to command her to die. Shala, who had been concerned about Subaru to that extent, had let Subaru throw himself to his death right in front of her eyes. The weight of that impact he did not know, and it must have immensely shattered her heart, which had continued awaiting for 400 years. That is why this was nothing more than Subaru's self-satisfaction. The worst kind of self-satisfaction of exaggerating and not seeing the result for himself with his own eyes. However, Subaru, so what? If all that is fastened to him was nothing but self-satisfaction, nothing but hypocrisy, what was wrong with that? In the end, the method to catch and halt the impact of all happenings in this world could only be wielded in one's own weighing scales. Unaccomplished good deeds hold no meaning, and the word known as hypocrisy doesn't ultimately exist. All of them surviving. After his discussion with Shala, Subaru cemented the final objective he had touted. No, to be precise, the survival of all of them had been his goal from the beginning. That judgment had merely decided whether to include Shala in that or not, and Subaru chose to love all of them. He shall lead the way to solve all of the catastrophes surrounding this sand tower. For that purpose, he would do anything he could. That is, Subaru. The meaning behind why I am myself. Isn't that so, Natsuki Subaru? Along with that instantaneous decision, he awakened from the deep, deep abyss of death. The scene changes. Stranger, Subaru, are you certain of what you said earlier? Subaru. Yeah, don't be doubtful after coming this far. It's the information I collected after meeting it face to face and everything. If it couldn't be made the best use out of, I wouldn't bring it up. Harshly replying to the sideward face of the good-looking man running at an average speed, Subaru dashed while pulling the tiny palm. Running past the fourth layer's aisle, they aimed for the second layer of Electra loaded with frustration. As Subaru sprinted whilst pulling Beatrice's hand, Julius, yellow eyes, glanced sideways at him. Julius, Subaru, your paleness has not gotten any better. So indeed, the happening in the book was. Subaru. I'm not hiding how worried I am. Don't even try telling me I should have quietly caved into the green room, you. Julius. I would recommend you to stay calm here if it weren't for this situation, but unfortunately things are quite bustling. Right now, we must use anything we can, even if they are mere grains of sand. Subaru, you've got nothing to say, so you'll call me using grains of sand, eh, Julius? They can be thrown if the wind is meager enough, if possible, when in a position capable of reaching the opponent's eyes. Narrowing his eyes at the elegant eloquency, Subaru thought of his words about being thrown into the wind to be ironic. The truth is, in terms of experience, Subaru's death just a few minutes ago had been one of being thrown into the wind. Julius comparing Subaru's existence to grains of sand was not necessarily a mistake either. Subaru. But grains of sand have their own qualities. Beatrice. On top of that, those grains of sand have Betty with them, I suppose. In other words, they are grains of sand with the cutest companion, in fact. Subaru, what? I guess you're talking about the sand that got into your shoes. Beatrice. That's not what that means, I suppose. Smiling at Beatrice, who puffed her cheeks, Subaru pulled her body by directing strength into his arm. Beatrice let out a shriek saying, Wah H hick, and her light frame tightly fit into Subaru's chest. Running while pulling her hand was something quite romantic, but right now he wanted to prioritize speed. Fortunately, Beatrice's body was light like an angel's feather, so carrying her and running was an easy win as well. Subaru. Well, I haven't ever carried an angel's feather, though. Julius. About time idle talk ends here. Subaru. I do believe it is annoying, but... Subaru. Yeah, it's annoying. Though I can't come up with words telling you to relax even if I rip my mouth apart, but it is absolute that that guy Reed and Gluttony will come in contact. We have to go to hold that off. Halting his legs, Julius asked while gazing at the humongous stairway that led to the second layer which lay ahead of them. Interrupting that inquiry, Subaru affirmed that he possessed confidence in it. It was inconceivable for that to be untrue. After all, this was something he had heard from Julius himself. And if they could obstruct this, Subaru, we can put out a safe against Reed messing everything up. Julius, at any rate, it would be better if his trespassing can be avoided in this chaos. Even if it is just for confirming his movements, it is well worth it to make our way here. Positioning his legs ahead of the humongous stairway, Julius nodded at Subaru. Returning a nod to that, Subaru, whilst keeping Beatrice in his grasp, stepped onto the final level of the stairway. And Subaru, Gug, Beatrice. Subaru, your condition really is bad, in fact. The book's effect is visible, I suppose. Beatrice looked at Subaru, who had shaken his head violently for a single moment and touched his cheek out of anxiety. Whilst gaining tranquility from the warmth of that small palm, Subaru shook his head, saying, I'm fine. Subaru, exhaustion from reading did not lower my wisdom. On top of that, it's just as what I told Julius. This is no time to stay in bed. This is the time when everyone should put their strength together. Beatrice, when about to really reach the limit, absolutely tell Betty, in fact. Subaru, yeah, I know. Responding to Beatrice, who was pressurizing him based on her senses, Subaru took in a long, deep breath. His body felt sluggish. His head felt heavy. His nausea was increasing without pause, and he felt congestion in his blood vessels as if in place of blood, coal tar had been poured into them. All of this was the result of Subaru taking over Ram's inferior physical form through Corleonis. What he had harvested was the aftermath of having strode across return by death and the continuation of Corleonis. Equal to his uneasiness by the memories of death, what he carried over by the authority. Thanks to that, he was able to grasp on the positions of his comrades at the current moment. Everyone was abiding by Subaru's instructions and had started to respond to each of the respective attacks. Within those responses of his comrades also existed Meili, in the balcony, and Shala, struggling fiercely. She was certainly there and fighting for Subaru, and the others know, for Subaru's sake. Subaru, I will definitely help you. Whispering behind him, Subaru followed Julius back, who had gone ahead of him. The humongous stairway, which cleared over the first layer of the tower and went through the layer above that, was lengthy. But neither was this the time to spit up complaints, nor the situation to leak whining. His entire body was sore, his bones had been shattered to pieces, but they were a necessary compensation to break out of this situation. And Julius, Subaru, let's advance! Julius' dignified voice resounded, and Subaru raised his face whilst running out of breath. And Julius, who had reached the utmost step, turned half of his body back and gestured to Subaru with his hand. Abiding by that, the moment he galloped over the stairway, he was met with the space that had opened up. The complete opposite arrangement of rooms from the fourth layer, which had multiple rooms dividing the floor like a spherical wineglass that had been shattered. The second layer, Electra, which divided all of their worth of existence by the trial, is where they had arrived. And in Electra, where the three of Subaru, Beatrice, and Julius had arrived, the first-generation sword Saint Reed and the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony were Reed. Hey, you! Is that all you have got, you? It ain't a joke, you. Didn't you come here to entertain me, you? It's lackin', you. Don't you be mackin' me laugh, you. No, at least be mackin' me laugh, you know, you. It ain't amusin' or anythin', you. They came across the scene where the sword Saint Reed Estria went on and on complaining, having grabbed a single leg of the young boy that had been mercilessly struck down onto the floor. The scene changes. Julius, this is... Staring at the spectacle before their eyes, the one to whisper that in blank surprise was Julius. However, Subaru's mental state witnessing the scene was absolutely the same as what he had whispered. Then what scene had they been expecting was something quite difficult to determine now that if it were to be mentioned, Reed. What's up, you all? Y'all common here too, ain't that some enthusiasm? Or do you have business not with me but with this guy? Gluttony. Caw. Saying that, Reed scratched the area of his chest with his right hand, and with his other hand the leg of the young boy he had in his grip, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. He lifted him upside down and made a look of suspicion. Just as mentioned before, what scene they had been expecting was something quite difficult to determine now that if it were to be mentioned. But at the very least, this scene far surpassed what Subaru had assumed. Subaru. I had heard that Reed and Gluttony were negotiating, but Beatrice. Negotiating? This, I suppose. Betty thinks that even an exchange would be a lacking expression for this, in fact. Julius. Yes, I agree. It is difficult to even call this a conversation. With that, Beatrice and Julius arrived at the same conclusion as what Subaru had whispered. However, the reaction of those two did not make sense from Subaru's perspective. Because the contact between Reed and Gluttony, the one to express it as negotiation from what he had heard last time, had been Julius, who must have witnessed a similar situation. In any case, Subaru. The scene where Gluttony got overwhelmingly whipped down, would that be correct? Though nobody had asked for it, that is what Subaru worded what he witnessed. In the white space of the second layer Electra indeed, the one-on-one battle Gluttony and Reed had engaged in. Its traces remained in various spots. They were the crevices on the floor caused by being stepped firmly upon, or the cracks in walls, which gave the impression of being caused by slashing strikes. Aside from those, the traces of black burns caused by fires, or the scattered lumps of earth which were not supposed to be here, that precisely made clear the characteristic of Gluttony. It was unmistakable that the departments of all kinds of special moves had been lavish feasts. The departments of those techniques had been struck and smashed to atoms by the calamity known as Reed. Subaru. Earthquake, thunder, fire, are all of them Reed. Reed, so what are y'all gonna do, you all? Do you wanna go for the trial? You can go for it since you have a slightly nice expression. But young fish, you can't. Ah, you can't. Julius. Why do you say he is an exception? Reed. Don'tcha get it juice by talkin' a look. A guy who ain't perfect or can't even become a game companion, instead of Bane imperfect, is juice, full of holes, ain't that so? Don't stand in front of me when you're like that. I start wantin' to kill you with a single finger, you know. Gluttony, gi gughira a. While saying that, Reed stabbed his right hand's fingers into the torso of Gluttony whom he had in his grip. With his guts mercilessly gouged, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony gave rise to an unseemly shriek. Though it was unknown how old Gluttony physically was, even so, from the standpoint of his outward appearance, the young boy of 13 or 14 years of age was being tormented by an adult was the emotion he felt, difficult to suppress upon that sight. It seemed as if Julius also had the identical feeling, and so, Julius. Reed Astrea, you must also be possessing the dignity as a knight. Then, what reason is there for you to torment that young boy any more than necessary? Reed. Hey, you, don'tcha be sayin' idiotic bullshit, said Reed without changing the tone of his voice, and declared whilst possessing only the sword's spirit similar to penetrating cold in response to Julius, who tried to offer commencing conversation from a fresh start. Reed shook the body of Gluttony left and right whose leg he had grabbed. Reed. The dignity of a swordsman. If you scatter that bout in exaggeration, that's exactly why the thin, called the preparedness of a swordsman exists. Are you gonna be fightin' without even the preparedness to die? If you're gonna have an attitude mackin' light of it like that, then there ain't any choice but to teach it to you with pain. The preparedness and dignity of a swordsman. If the argument was to be placed such a sumo ring, the one to be at the inferior position would be Julius. On top of having pride hang outside earlier, Reed's words about preparedness possessed a constant persuasive power. On top of that, though the visible person was painful to even look at, Subaru. If Gluttony collapses, then the result certainly is all right. Though obvious, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony was not included in his touted objective of everyone's survival. The ones Subaru wanted to save were only Amelia, Beatrice, Ram, Rem, Maylie, Echidna, Julius, and Shala. On top of that, the two of Patrash and Jayan. Gluttony and Reed were not subject to that. If the two of them were to crush each other to call it as that results in an outcome too unilateral, but it was advantageous for Subaru and the others should that happen. However, Reed, first of all, is this guy your buddy? If that's so, then it ain't as if I don't get why you're gettin' so heated up. Julius? No, absolutely not. That Sin Archbishop of Gluttony is a bitter enemy of myself as well, an opponent with whom, in the worst-case scenario, if I were to fight to the extremity, one may end up taking the other's life. Reed. Then why are you gettin' so mad? 'Cause your prey got snatched away. Julius. It is because you are kicking the pride of a swordsman. Julius told the sword saint the man who was the first one to hold that title, bestowed upon only those who stand at the pinnacle of the sword. That declaration of Julius, which couldn't even be an insult, was silently being heard by Reed, who narrowed his eye, not covered by the eye patch. Upon the wakeful watch of that sword saint, Julius continued as if slashing the atmosphere. Julius? If battling swordsmen, warriors, knights is something where one must prepare his body for death beforehand, then it is fine to submit to losing one's life at the extremity of the battle. However, that, at most, is the extremity of battle. Death at the extremity upon the exhaustion of all of one's desperate efforts is how it should be. The victor, absolutely, must not play around with the life of the defeated. Reed. You're sayin', shit, that's mackin' my ears itchy. Who the hell's gonna be listenin' to all that? Julius. I do not mind should they be named as even inexperienced ideals or sweet nothings. Merely embodying those ideals and sweet nothings is the way of the knight I believe in. With that bold assertion, Julius unsheathed his own knight sword. From what he had heard, this knight sword had gotten fractured. Once it was not supposed to be a sword he had a habit of using, hence, it was something suspicious, which his hand was yet growing accustomed to. But above all, what must have always been in his fundamental values, those will never waver. That is because they had certainly always continued to shimmer within his self. That shimmering something did not let Julius overlook Reed's unjustness. Even if the one to fall victim to that unjustness should be a sin archbishop, someone who had committed grave atrocities. Reed. The way of the night, aye. Beyond all expectation, that whisper jolted the atmosphere in Electra. That was a quiet tone of voice. That was not a voice harboring emotions of little significance. That was nothing but an echo which seemed as if it had slipped in amongst the other nonchalant and bored echoes. However, that was the signal of eruption of the first-generation sword saint, Reed Astrea. Reed. Hey, you! How long are you gonna be sleepin'? Wake the hell up. Gluttony. Gughaitsu! As he groaned and directed strength of grip such that he could crush that grabbed leg with his hand, Gluttony responsively shrieked upon his leg, almost being crushed. And Reed looked down onto the upside-down sin archbishop. Reed. You said some interestin' shit, ain't that so? You said you're gonna eat me up, taste me up, lick me up. I will let you do that. Gluttony, jihai gaha ahahahitsu. What's up with that, Tsu? What's that? What happened so suddenly, Tsu? Why so suddenly do you feel like that, red-haired Oni-san? Even though you swung we or us around this much because you were against that who H. Reed. I changed my mind. Ah, that's right. Removing the distortion of his face caused by pain, Gluttony tried regaining his state of health as Reed glared at him. After that, as if having suddenly noticed something, Reed rotated his neck around. Reed. Ones like you'll will be intrudin' right away anyway, ain't that so? Remarkably saying that, Reed stepped ahead diagonally. At that moment, shining violet crystals were thrown into the spot Reed was standing on. A shrill sound as that of shattering glass reverberated, and the violet arrows themselves along with the floor smashed and got scattered about. However, they missed their aim, and Reed, who had been their aim, took a single step and leapt, shortening his distance to Subaru and the others who had commenced that attack just now. Beatrice. Hick! Subaru, not good, I suppose. Reed. Here. Beatrice's warning rendered fruitless. Gluttony was struck into Subaru's torso, delivering a side blow. Handling a human as a blunt weapon, the unstoppable force mercilessly sent Subaru flying, who had been carrying Beatrice. Subaru. Gahog hick. Reed. It's good you didn't hesitate, you all. This is way better than that beautiful girl in terms of fightin'. Well, the broken fragments of your ability haven't been reassembled, though. With no flexibility to even respond to Reed's brief review, Subaru rolled over while holding Beatrice with all his might. He must not feel as if the origin of his life had been shorn off, with his internal organs overturned by the single blow just now, accompanied with Ram's physical burden. Julius. Subaru, Beatrice-sama, KGH, hic. And whilst fearing for the blown away Subaru and Beatrice, Julius, in a single instant piercingly charged towards Reed, who had shortened the distance in between. However, Reed strode on and crushed that with his feet and hammered a kick into Julius' abdomen, who had tilted the axis of his legs. Though Julius received that with the handle of the knight's sword he had instantaneously drawn, he could not block being lunged through by the shock wave as well. With his guts churned by the perforating single blow, he fell back greatly. And meanwhile Reed, "Here, try it out and see. To eat me up or to die juice like this by Bane played around by me, choose one what you'd like or I'd have no choice but to make a move. Ain't that the thin called life, hey you? Gluttony, Atsu. We get it, we do get it, we really get it. We completely get it as we get it, so we get it as we want to get it because we get it. Gluttonous drinking, Sue. Gluttony, Sue. We'll do as per your wish, Sue. It's impossible for us to stay without eating, Sue." Remaining upside down, raising his face right towards the front, Gluttony smiled at Reed. And Gluttony stretched his hand, grabbing the area of Reed's left eye which had been concealed by the eye patch. He subsequently opened his mouth and Gluttony, "Reed Astrea." Licking, Gluttony let go of Reed from his hand, as if tearing something off. And gazing lovingly at his palm where that something was not even present, he exposed his tongue. At the same pace, he chewed that invisible something and reverberated a slurping sound as if indulging in it. Afterwards, Reed, "Ah." Abruptly, change arrived in a single instant. As if it had been an illusion or something, Reed's form vanished in the blink of an eye. With the tall figure disappearing from the space, it was certainly supposed to be in Gluttony, whose leg had been grabbed, fell onto the floor. At the same pace, his hands skillfully made a reversal and Gluttony made an agile landing and looked at his own palm. What was recurring in those eyes was something close to the nothingness, desolateness, dismay of seemingly a gourmet delicacy, which had exhausted its extravagance, disappearing from the top of the platter. Gluttony. So amazy ng. That kind of flavor, this kind of flavor, which kind of flavor would it be like? We imagined a lot of low tea about it, but it was above expectations, Sue. Subaru, he ate Reed. Gluttony. You saw that right, Sue? We did eat him, we indeed ate him. Really, isn't it the best? This is the flavor which cannot be imagined, Sue. Even we, who are called something like bizarre eating, are able to get it at this guy's rich taste, Sue. Even without knowing Lay's say, leaning backwards, whilst touching own sharp canines, Gluttony praised Reed's flavor. As far as thought could go, it was the worst food report in human history. It halted in between. It was not as if something had barged in as an obstruction. Its origin lay in Gluttony himself. Gluttony. Wah. Beatrice. Just what is being started up this time, in fact, Subaru. No, that is. Putting his hands on his own throat and abdomen, Gluttony started making movement as if practicing speech. Though Beatrice found that state to be ominous, Subaru had an idea regarding this abnormality. If the exchange between Reed and Gluttony, just a moment ago, if that was what Julius spoke of as negotiation, then Gluttony. Wait, jihitsu. Strange, it's strange, isn't it strange, Sue? After all this is, you odd, isn't it? Gluttony. It ain't odd, you, to eat or to be eaten, that's how life works, ain't that so? Strangling his own throat, Gluttony fired words as if answering his own questions. That tone of voice met clear change, and as if pulled into the change of that tone of voice, change ensued in Gluttony's flesh body itself. It was a change as if the waxing and waning of the moon, and the expression of questioning when did it even happen was appropriate for it. Subaru did not avert his eyes at all. The same went for Beatrice, who was in his chest, and of course Julius, who had taken stance with his sword. However, whilst remaining captured in the field of vision of the three, Gluttony erased that form of his in an instant, and instead, the one standing at the spot where Gluttony had been was. Stranger. A fresh body sure's different. It feels like blood's flowin' through flesh. I'm already feelin' hungry. At least come after fillin' your stomach, mentally adult brat. Pronouncing so, the one who had carried out substituting for the former player, having exited the stage known as the Pleiades Watchtower for merely a few 10 seconds, the existence who was blooming a second time at the center of the stage, was Reed. Reed Astrea had stolen the flesh body of the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony and had achieved resurrection into the present world. Julius, this is the result of the negotiations between Reed and Gluttony from Julius' perspective. Of course, the details of the content of the conversation between Reed and Gluttony must have changed due to Subaru and the other's intervention, but it should have approximately remained the same. In other words, Subaru, what the hell's the negotiation, speaking while putting on airs? Beatrice, Subaru, this is not the time to be saying all that, I suppose. Gluttony has disappeared, and Reed has. Subaru directed a rough remark towards Julius' pretentious phrasing the previous time. Within those arms, Beatrice called for further vigilance, but Subaru patted her head lightly and gazed towards Reed. Subaru, strictly speaking, taking a backhand grip onto the authority of Gluttony which reconstructs eaten opponents, and painted out the opponent's self, is that right? Reed, don't ya go round sayin' tough bullshit. Like I'd know such convenient shit. So don't swagger about with shit I'd no way in hell know, damn young fish. Young fish? You. Ah, you this, you that's it, ain't it, you? Though his spirit had hijacked that flesh body, Reed made a wry face unrelated to that truth. He unusually groaned, saying him, and gently put a finger in his own eye patch. And turning it over, he looked at Subaru with his healthy blue eye which had no particular need for an eye patch. Looking, gazing, staring, Reed. You're pretty disgustin'. Reed, good job not having your head gettin' screwed up with that. No, has it gotten so? What it'll be precisely cause it's gotten so, I ain't got any idea. I haven't even given it a thought. What was he saying, thinking that? Subaru got truly perplexed upon Reed's attitude. On top of being perplexed, the shivering and nausea enveloping his entire body were about to hit the critical point. Though obvious, Ram's inferior physical form was worsening as much Ram's body increased its voltage, and was throwing the backfire of recoil she was originally supposed to have felt into Subaru. This time Subaru had not personally met up with Ram, so there were no means for Ram to find out the reason why her body was favorably working. Thinking of it now, it seemed as if Ram had been concerned regarding Subaru last time as well, though he had noticed Ram's concern, who was not in this place, only after dying twice, Reed. I see, I do see. I ain't got any idea, but it looks like you're the one these guys are aimin' for, ain't that so? Then that makes things faster. Julius. Reed, your opponent is myself. Stepping ahead, Julius fired a slashing strike, but Reed attempted receive that with the chopsticks he had drawn out from his bosom, however, Reed. Ah. The slashing strike lightly touched the tip of the chopsticks, and blood spouted out of Reed's right hand, despite him wanting to receive it. Looking at that, Reed made a suspicious look. Julius raised his eyebrows in faint surprise as well. And for having witnessed that with his own eyes, that alone was a harvest for Subaru. Reed. Clicking his tongue, Reed gyrated his chopsticks as if spinning a pen between the gap of his fingers and skillfully repelled Julius' night sword. At the same pace, stepping ahead with a single stomp, he lapsed the distance between him and Julius, who had instantaneously drawn his body back, and aimed his palm towards his abdomen. Reed. Your opponent is myself, did you say that? Julius. K.H. Reed, no way you'll be gettin' to have an exchange with me, after doin' a princess carry back there. The further twisted sole of the palm burst open Julius' abdomen. The slender, tall figure continued bleeding and was blown away backwards. He tried to position his lengthy legs to the floor in order to kill off that vigor, but failing to do so, Julius' body turned upward at the bottom on the floor and tumbled over at the same pace. And concluding his battle with Julius, who had widened the distance in between, Reed turned back Subaru. She-hick. Aiming for that sideward face of Reed's, Subaru fired the whip which was at the back of his waist. However, without the occurrence of a miracle such as his body continuing to remember it, the tip of the whip flew towards the wrong direction. The effect of lost memories was not only in his mind, but also affecting the recursive actions of his flesh body. As a result of fully realizing that, Subaru took in a heavy inhale. At the same time as that, Reed. You with such a boring trick, Beatrice. That boring trick is the recommendation of you getting an end of being buried, in fact. Going past his amazement, Reed expressed his rage, and from his hind echoed the loud sound of striking hands. Upon looking, that had been Beatrice, who had both her hands free, away from Subaru. However, even if their hands were unconnected, there was a certain connection between them. Beatrice extracted an extremely small amount of something like MP from the path of Subaru and exercised great magic. Beatrice. Ul Shamak. The moment immediately after Beatrice's chant had achieved completion, what arose in the space was an enormous black hole. That which had appeared all of a sudden in the air, manifested as an existence accompanied by primordial fear such as its unknown bounds and unknown depths, and tried to swallow Reed, who was right before it. Subaru, that is. At a single glance, it could be understood that it was the great magic in effect within the space. This was more of an issue of imaging it so, rather than having knowledge about it. Subaru had heard of Beatrice being a wasteful spirit, but the intensity of the real great magic could not even be in the same league of comparison. Subaru had been unaware that this was even possible. This was a harvest. That black hole swallowed Reed and repelled away his sword saint off to somewhere unknown, Reed. The hell, it's juice air. Something like airs everywhere, as if it'd stop me. With just a single swing of his chopsticks, Reed broke through that immense magic with extreme easiness. A carefree attitude, as if, quite literally, slashing through air. No, for him, it truly was exactly that. He did not have the nature of taking roundabouts around something which he was capable of doing and then boasting about it. He had slashed the air, so that was his explanation. That was all there was to it. Subaru. Slashing dimensions, I imagine it as quite a superior ability, you know. Reed. Hey, Doncha put such cool names on it. Better food can be served, you know. If you'll stay persistent juice cause things have gotten a bit lively, that won't be amusing or anything, you know. Swinging his chopsticks at the same angle as when he had slashed Beatrice's magic, the moment immediately afterwards, Subaru's body had been diagonally burst open from his chest to his waist. Subaru. Ga, Beatrice. Subaru, Julius. Subaru hick. Tasting the sensation of scorching heat, Subaru collapsed on the spot as Beatrice and Julius called for him. Upon the voices of those two, Subaru gnashed his molars and glared at Reed with bloodshot eyes. And turning his palm towards the two trying the rush up to him, he managed to halt their legs. Subaru. I'm all right. Shaking his head left and right, he urged the two to not worry for him. Of course, there was no way he could truly convince them simply by conveying such words to the two. The chest wound was shallow. No, it was not shallow. Though it was not shallow, it did not ache. It could be expressed as not being unbearable. At any rate, though it was bitter, it was all right. It was not worthy of making those two experience bitter, painful emotions. Gnashing molars, the blood on the verge of being vomited nausea. Whichever it was, vomiting must be restrained from. Facing the front, glaring ahead, Reed must be carefully observed. Reed. As if you can reach me with that, you. With a stunned expression, Reed was looking at Subaru, who was bleeding out of his lips. Facing that Reed, Subaru stretched out his hand and raised a single finger. Subaru. Why, yeah, I will reach you. Even right now, I can reach you. In a place not necessarily here. I will, for sure, save Emilia, Beatrice, Ram, Rem, Maylie, Echidna, Julius, Shala, Patrash, Jayan. Without failing a single person. Gluttony and Reed were exceptions. The Natsuki Subaru who was not Natsuki Subaru as well. That is why, right now, at this moment, Subaru. This is count one. Overlapping with death necessary for a counterattack was an accomplishment of Natsuki Subaru's as well. At the very end of the end, Reed's blue eyes sheened a dull flash towards Subaru, who had made that declaration. The scene changes. The fight between Reed and Gluttony cannot be stopped. If it's Julius, then there is a chance for them to succeed. Natsuki Subaru has no chance of succeeding.